This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is Monday, April 6th, and this is a continuation of the lunchtime WebExes that Agency One is hosting, trying to help everyone be productive while we're all sorting through this COVID-19 situation that we're all experiencing. Today's webinar is all about scams, hackers, and remote work, how to safeguard your employees and your systems. This is part one of a two-part presentation. The second part of the presentation will be next Monday, April 13th at the same time. Our presenter for both today and next Monday is Scott Richards, who's the Director of Training for Design Data. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott, who's going to hopefully show us and teach us how we can all work from home in a safer environment. This presentation is being recorded, so we invite you to visit the presentation again on our website for your employees and other folks that you'd like to share this information with. So with that, Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Kathy, and good afternoon, everyone. As Kathy said, my name is Scott Richards, and I am the Director of Training at Design Data. We are a small managed service provider in the DC area. All of our clients are in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And I hope everyone is home or wherever you might be, taking precautions, being safe at this time, certainly with your health, etc. But obviously, there's a lot of worry about cyber crime going on right now. As you can see on the screen, there's a lot of different types of scams going on right now as it pertains to coronavirus. These are really nothing new other than they're focused on the specific issue at hand right now, which is obviously COVID-19. So if you start at the top, I'm going to play you a very short clip, an audio clip of one of the phone scams that's going on right now. The FCC last week announced this website where you can go and see some of these sample of these phone scams, and you can literally hear them. I'm going to play you a very short clip of one of them to give you kind of an idea of the types of things that the hackers are doing right now.
Hello, this is a call from the Social Security Administration. During these difficult times of the coronavirus, we regret to inform you that we have got an order to suspend your socials immediately within 24 hours due to suspicious and fraudulent activities found on your socials. We are contacting you as this case is critical and needs your urgent attention. To get more information about this case, please call immediately on our department number 888-991-2325. I repeat, 888-991-2325.
So, hopefully you could kind of get the sense that was obviously targeted at Social Security. If you were someone who was, on Social Security or, related to that, you might be worried about that. There are other scams going on about, we can deliver you test kits or masks, urgently, please call this number. So obviously you want to be very careful with any kind of suspicious phone calls like that. The one on the left about the white lab coats is a scenario where literally people are putting on white lab coats and going to people's houses pretending to be doctors or nurses in order to promise them, again, things like, we'll deliver you test kits or masks or whatever in exchange for information. And obviously the goal of all of the hackers here is to get information out of you, and most of the time to hopefully get money or something like that out of you. Could everyone please go on mute if you are not already? Thank you. The one at the bottom, though, is really the one that kind of sets the stage for all of this, and that is, this is the perfect storm for hackers right now, because normally what hackers need in order to kind of get people is their information, and the best time for them to do that is when there's doubt or suspicion. Kathy, do you have a way to mute everyone?
Lisa, can you mute everybody's lines, please, if that's possible?
I think we did. I think that worked. So thank you for that. So again, this period right now of uncertainty is exactly what the hackers are looking for, because whenever there's uncertainty, you're much more likely to do something that you wouldn't normally do, like click on something or listen to something or respond to something, because we're all waiting to find out what's next and what's coming and what's going to happen and whatever. So you just need to be much more diligent now than you have in the past. So as Kathy said earlier, this is part one. We're going to talk just today about email security, because honestly, this is the most important area of cybersecurity. This is how hackers are getting to people most of the time, is through email. So we want to make sure that we understand the best practices. So there is a new normal right now. Obviously, a lot of us are working from places we're not used to working, either from home, from relatives' house, from friends' house, wherever you may be. And one of the changes here is that when you're sitting at your desk, and logging onto the computer, you may get up for a second and not log off your computer, and the next thing you know, one of your kids might just come over and say, "Oh, what's this?" Right? And suddenly they've logged into something, they just randomly clicked on something. So obviously one best practice that's new is please make sure that when you get up from your computer, if there's anything on there that you need to be worried about, which most of the time there is, you either log off or just kind of log out, or do something to prevent someone from accidentally getting onto your computer. And this is not to say that your kids or whomever in your house are going to maliciously try to do anything. It's just they may see an open browser and go surfing the web, for example, or just do something like, oh, I need to log on to my account or whatever. You don't want them doing that. So we wouldn't normally have to be aware of that at work, but now that we're at home, it is something that you probably want to look into. All right, so here's some examples of some of the things going around right now around the COVID-19 situation, right? Here's an example of an email that's being sent around. The goal of all of these is to get you to click something. Hackers can then get control of your laptop. And we're going to talk about in a few minutes, how does that happen, right? How do they get control of your laptop? Simply by your clicking on something. Here's another one. This one pretends to be from the CDC. Basically, asking for things, or if you want to see the update on new cases, you can click this link. One thing that you might notice if you look very carefully, a lot of times we wouldn't notice, is that the address in the email at the very top is different than the address in the web link. So at the top, it says cdc-gov.org, and in the web link, it says cdc.gov. It's a different domain, not something that you might normally pay attention to. But now, given the circumstance, I'm telling people to please be careful, spend a little more time looking at these emails. You might start to notice things that look a little weird to you. And my rule of thumb for people is always trust your gut when it comes to this stuff. If you see anything in an email that looks suspicious, it probably is, or at the very least, you should ask somebody before you go ahead and click on something or open attachments. And lastly, here's another one that came out when the stimulus package was announced last week. Immediately, the hackers came out with a whole series of new emails saying, hey, this document will tell you all about the tax cut, right? And obviously the way these work is they wait to watch the news, which is obviously coming in bounds and right now in leaps. So as soon as they see something new being announced on the news, they go and they craft an email that says, hey, here's some more information about it, because we're all kind of dying to hear. Sorry, that's a really terrible term. I guess I shouldn't use that. We're all really eager to hear, what's going on and how I can get more information about the stimulus package or the tax cut or what's coming, right? So again, use a little restraint. Rule of thumb is, if you see any of this stuff, I'm stealing from a slide I'm about to use, don't go to email to find it. Turn on the television. Go to the CDC website, right? There are lots of legitimate sources that you can go to, but the reason that we don't do that is because we're lazy. and we want to know immediately, right? So you get this email and you're like, oh, I want to see that, rather than, gee, maybe this is suspicious. Let me just go to the CDC website, right? Let me go to the CNN website, whatever site you go to, right? It's always safer than reading it in an email. So when you're dealing with all of this stuff about, how do I know which of these emails are real? How do I know which ones of these emails are not real? For this particular circumstance, it's pretty easy. The answer is don't click on anything, period. Okay, if it has anything to do with coronavirus, okay, don't use email, right? Go to your trusted website or turn on the TV, turn on the radio. I guarantee within 3 minutes, you'll hear the latest, you'll underhear what's going on, right? Don't use email as a source right now because it's just not reliable. I did want to share a couple of things that are not directly coronavirus related, but are fairly new in this space that you do want to be aware of. So for example, this one here, these are 2 separate emails and they each have an attachment with them. They're both PDFs, but what's happening here, which is a brand new technology for hackers, is that these are not actually attachments. These are images. So, it looks like an attachment, right? But if you were to take your mouse and accidentally click on that, which normally wouldn't really do anything, you have to double click to open an attachment. If you clicked once, it would just bring up the pull down menu that says, do you want to open it? Do you want to preview it? But in this case, because it's an image, if you were to click on that and that image was a malicious link, then you would be in effect activating a virus. Okay, so now we don't even know that these are not attachments. The way you know, and we're going to talk about this in a second, is you hover your mouse over that, and if it pops up with any kind of a link, that tells you it's an image. If it pops up with nothing, then it's a viable attachment. And I'm going to show you this in a second. But finally, there is this scam which you need to be aware of if you're not already. This was a legitimate ad that got sent out about 1.5 years ago by a shoe company in Japan that was trying to promote their shoes in their online web store. So what they did is they created this ad, and when you got this particular ad, and there was a little text below it, say you were on your mobile device, you'd say, well, wait a minute, what is that on my screen? It looks like a hair. And you would kind of take your finger to get rid of that hair and just swipe the hair off your screen. Well, it turns out that is not a hair, that is a malicious web link. And if you swiped it, then you just activated a virus by clicking or basically, in effect, clicking on the link with your finger. You just swiped the link, now you just activated a virus. When the hackers saw this, because all this initially did was it drove traffic to their web store. But once the hackers got a hold of it, they said, oh, we can use this for all kinds of nefarious purposes. So they started including this in other emails. So rule of thumb, if you see something that looks like a hair or a crack on your screen, okay, the easiest thing to do is just turn off your power off your computer for a second. If that goes away, then clearly that was not a hair or a crack. Okay, it's tied to the image, right? So be careful of that one. So three golden rules of email security. Number 1, never click on a link, okay, until you've hovered over the link. And we're going to talk about this in a second. How do you do that? Number 2, don't click on attachments, okay? If you click on attachment, double click on an attachment to open it, you could very well be activating a virus. Again, we'll talk a little more about this in a second. And the third one, which people don't normally think about, is just try to slow down and read your emails carefully. We don't do this because, frankly, we're just trying to get through those emails as soon as humanly possible. So, you got 75 emails in your inbox. You don't want to sit there and go through every single one of them carefully, right? It's way too much effort. You want to get through them so we can get to our real work. But you have to be careful with the ones you're not sure about, especially right now. This is a very, very critical time. I saw a stat the other day that I think the number of phishing emails or malicious emails has gone up something like 600% in the last 2 weeks, and it's because they're trying to prey on people with the current circumstances. So you just have to slow down and be really careful. So let's take a look at when I say move your mouse over the link to take a look at it. Let's go ahead and see what that really means. And in fact, what I'm showing you here is how hackers create phishing emails. It's as simple as going, and again, I'm not telling people to do this by any means. I'm not trying to turn you into a hacker, but I want you to understand how simple this is for a hacker to do, that any one of us can do this in less than a minute. If you go to email and create a new email in Outlook, okay, and you go to your email and you start typing, I'll show you how easy it is to create one of these things. I could say tips on the latest recommendations for coronavirus. And let me fix the spelling because obviously we don't want that. Right, and then I'm going to put a link in here. So all I'm going to do is go to my insert tab and insert a link. And this is in effect what you really need to know. When you insert a link in any software, it doesn't have to be Outlook. This is the same as in Excel, in Word, in PowerPoint, in Gmail, doesn't matter. There's two fields that pop up. The field that they want you to see on the screen, and then the real place you're going to go to when you click on that link. So on the screen, I could say anything I want. I could say www.cnn.com/valid info, okay, whatever. But in reality, where this is going to go is we're in the address field. And so I just put http://badvirus.com, and I say, okay. And this is what happens. You're reading this email now, and it says, hey, get tips on the latest recommendations for coronavirus. Oh, it's CNN, right? Valid info. Great, yeah, that looks real. And then you click on it. When in reality, all you have to do is take your mouse and you hover it. You don't click, but you move it over that link, and you will see a little pop-up that shows you the website you're going to go to. And you can see it says badvirus.com. So obviously, I would hope if you saw that, you would not click on this. But the important point here is that if you don't do that, and you're just reading what's on the screen, this has no bearing, what you see here, on the website you're going to go to. Because on every time you create a link, there's what you display on the screen and where you go. So just be very aware of that, okay? So now that you know that, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? You know, if you click on one of these links, right, or really any suspicious link, you know, what could happen? And there's two major things you need to be aware of. There's lots of others, but these are the two big ones. There's something called ransomware. If you click on a link or open an attachment that's malicious, what will happen is ransomware can be put on your computer. And what ransomware is, in effect, is they have encrypted all of your files. And you get this big message that pops up that looks like this, and it says, in fact, your files have been encrypted. You have to pay them money, and if you don't pay them money by a certain date, then you lose all your files, okay? So the good news is if you have your files backed up, so Agency One is one of my clients, so as part of our service to Agency One, we back up all their files multiple times a day, and we have those files stored in a separate building in Silver Spring, Maryland. So God forbid anything were to happen to their files, they got this ransomware, we could take their files from our facility and we could take them and put them back on their machines. If you don't have your files backed up, I hope you all do. If you don't, I strongly recommend that you do that. In effect, you have lost all your files unless you pay this ransom. And the ransom is in something called Bitcoin, which is an internet currency that's untraceable. The problem is most of the time when you pay the ransom, they still don't give you your files back because, you know, they really have no incentive to do that. These are not nice people. And once they have the money, they're like, okay, thanks for the money, see ya, right? So you have to be very careful about this ransomware. There's a particular one going around right now having to do with coronavirus, and this is a mobile ransomware, which means you have to be careful on your mobile devices. Okay, so again, this looks like it's an application that you can put on your computer, right? And you just click on the link to download that application, and it will keep you posted on the latest coronavirus updates. Well, once you do that, you're just clicking on this malicious link, and now you've infected your mobile device. And if you happen to be on your mobile device and logged into your company's network, you potentially could immediately wipe out your entire company's network. So if everyone who's on that network at the time, their devices could also get the virus within a matter of minutes. So you have to be very careful about clicking on things on mobile devices as well. The second important thing is called a keylogger. And what this does, it's like a little camera. And this gets on your phone, or it gets on your laptop or your desktop or whatever you're using, and it just monitors every keystroke that you're typing. So in the example here, imagine that you're on the left here, and this is a VPN that someone's logging into, but imagine it was your bank account or a mutual fund account or any account you're logging into that has money tied to it. And what's happening is on the right, the hacker is sitting at their screen and they have this camera, so they're watching everything you type. And what's kind of scary about this is that people feel like they're safe because there's little dots that show up over your password field. In reality, those little dots really don't do anything. All they do is they prevent you, someone walking past your desk from seeing your password. So if you're sitting at your kitchen right now typing and your spouse walks by, they're not going to be able to see your password. But that's about it. Anyone else on the network can see it, and certainly the hackers can see it with this device. So in this case, you type your password, which is football23. The hackers are watching you type that. As soon as you log into your bank account, they're just going to wait for you to log out, hit the logout key. And as soon as you log out of your bank account, they are going to log in, and they're going to either wipe out your bank account or withdraw a large sum of money. And the scary part about this, if that's not scary enough, is that in addition to losing all your money, unless the bank notifies you that your account has been, basically gotten down to zero, this little keylogger thing is still on your computer and you still don't know it's there. So imagine a month from now, you're setting up some other account and you have to type in your social security number to set that account up. And you think, oh, well, you wouldn't think, well, someone has access to that. And in fact, they do. And now they have your social security number. So this thing can keep going forever and ever until you realize something weird is going on here. And the only way you're going to ever know that is if someone says to you, hey, your bank account has been wiped out, or hey, something, I got this notification, something weird has to happen for you to know that these things are on your computer. Another symptom of this is that if your computer or your phone or anything starts running much more slowly than normal, that's a sign that you have one of these things on your computer. So that should be a red flag. Other than that, there are pieces of software out there. Again, for our clients like Agency One, we have software that runs on their machines to try to track these types of tools, and we can track most of them. But the problem is these tools or these keyloggers are being created every single day. So brand new ones are coming out as we speak. There are like 8 or 10 of them a day coming out. And there's no way that the security companies even know about them until some company or some individual gets hit with it. And so that's the really scary thing about this. So there's a couple of ways that the hackers fool you, and you probably know about these. One is called phishing. This is also called spray and pray, because all the hackers are doing is they're sending out massive amounts of emails in the hope that someone will click on it, right? They're just kind of sending them out and crossing their fingers. So it's a numbers game. They send out 10,000 of the same email. They hope that maybe 1% of the population will click on it. And even if 1% of them do, they still have millions of people out there clicking on these fake emails. What's the thing that's interesting, this is a data point about the coronavirus phishing emails that are coming out now. If I were to ask you where you think these are coming from, I would guess you might say Russia. And in fact, you're kind of close, but it isn't Russia, it's Vietnam. That is the #1 country. But more interesting and perhaps scary is if I said, what's the #2 country on this list? In fact, it's not Russia, it's the polar opposite. It's the United States. So, if you think, oh, these are the Russians are the ones that are doing this, it's not. It's the US citizens that are actually doing this to you. Russia is on this list, it's #5, but it's well behind the US, and that's kind of a scary thing. There's also something called a spear phishing attack, which is something that's targeted to you as an individual. They find information about you and they use that to really get after you. So it's another kind of scary one that's out there as well. We talked about the 2 ways your machine gets infected. through attachments. So when you open attachments, there's a virus, okay, or you click on a link that downloads the malware. And that's how your computer gets infected. And the primary link between these two is you or us, right? If we don't do these two things, they can't get in our machines, because trust me, if they could, there would be no need for them to send you an email. They would just log into your machine, but they can't. So the only way they can get in is if you let them in by opening attachments and clicking on links. So to wrap up, I just want to leave you with some best practices. Beware of threatening language in an email. If you see anything that says you need to do this in the next 24 hours or as soon as possible, or something bad is going to happen to you if you don't take action immediately, right? You're going to get a parking ticket. Your account is going to be suspended. Something bad is going to happen if you don't do something immediately. That is the #1 red flag that this is a phishing email. So be very careful of those. Check the from and to fields. One thing that's really nice that Outlook has now added to its feature list is you will now get a message like this that says, the title says Bank of America alert, but if you then read the from email address, it says Bank of America at customerloyalty.accounts.com, and then next to it in parentheses, it says Bank of America via this bogus website, shockaway.com. So it's telling you that even though the title says it's from Bank of America, in reality, this is coming through another site, and that should scare you to the point of not opening this email. Okay, so that's Outlook is doing that now. That's a really nice thing. Legitimate companies will never ask for personal information via email, and don't believe everything you see, because anything that's in an email can be faked. It's called spoofing, and it's a term that means basically pretending to be a person that you're not, creating a fake logo, creating a fake email address. Every single item in an email can be faked, so you can't believe anything that you read in an email. Be careful what you post online, because hackers have access to the internet, and I mean the internet, like the entire internet. So if you put it online, assume that it's out there for everyone to access. Okay, if you get these, don't reply back. I know people, get these fake emails from their boss, and it says, I want you to buy these, Apple gift cards. And people reply back and say, is this really you? Which is kind of, in a way, funny, but not funny, because what you're doing in that case is you're replying back to the hacker. And the hacker, of course, says, yes, this is your boss. I need you to do this immediately. And then people do it. And we unfortunately have had a bunch of our individual clients do this. They've gone out and bought these fake gift cards because they thought it was from their boss, instead of simply picking up the phone and calling their boss and saying, hey, did you send me this? And the boss will say, no, I didn't send you that. Don't use electronic communication to verify, because you're just going back to the hacker and having a conversation with them. Finally, watch out for zeros instead of the letter O. This is not google.com, but if you're looking at an email very quickly, you may think that's google.com. And if you're hovering your mouse over it and you see that, you might say, oh, I hovered my mouse and where I'm really going to go is google.com. Okay, that is not google.com, so be careful. And finally, watch out for this one. This is not citibank.com. Okay, if you look carefully, you'll notice that the second I is not an I. It's an I with an accent over it, which is a completely different letter in the alphabet. It's now we're using non-Latin characters. So this website is not citibank.com. It's a completely different website. If you were to click on it, who knows what's on there? It could be malicious, so be careful of that. And then I guess finally, there is a term, I know it sounds funny, called smishing, but it's in effect text phishing. And you have to be at least, if not more careful on your mobile devices, because you don't have the luxury of a mouse on a phone, so you can't hover your mouse over this link. All right, so if you see a link, rule of thumb is don't ever click a link on your phone with your finger. It's just bad practice, could get you into all kinds of trouble. So that's kind of a real quick whirlwind tour of email. I know we're right about at the bottom of the hour. So Kathy, I'll turn it back over to you.
Scott, thank you. Scott, this was great. Thank you. It's Kathy. Why don't you give us a brief highlight of what we're going to cover next Monday?
Sure. So next week, I'm going to cover what I would consider kind of part 1A. I'm not going to call it part 2 because it's literally just as important, and that is password security and a couple of tips around using mobile devices and browsers. Password is the second most invasive way that hackers can get into accounts. You may have all seen the huge Marriott breach that happened last Thursday. Where someone hacked into Marriott and stole about, I think it was like 50 million Marriott accounts. Once they get your password off from something like that, they now have free reign to access every single one of your accounts. So in a way, that's almost worse than email hacking because if you're using the same password for multiple accounts, and I thought of all these poor people last week who had Marriott accounts, and luckily for me, I don't. But if you do, the first thing you should be doing is changing all of your passwords. If you use the same Marriott password for any other account, just be aware that someone now has your Marriott password. And the first thing they're out there doing is testing that password on all of your other accounts. So we're going to drive into why it's so important to have separate passwords and why you need different passwords and how long they need to be and the tool that can help you to take care of all of that for you.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Scott, I think that this was really helpful. I hope that everybody else did as well. I can tell you that if anyone's looking for some Nordstrom's gift cards, unfortunately, we've got a few. Yeah, it's funny, not really. Last week, I got an email from what purported to be Amazon and telling me that my account needed to be updated. And in this time when everybody seems to be ordering from Amazon, I said, wow, I haven't ordered from Amazon in a while. I don't understand. And I'm telling you, this thing really looked like it was from Amazon until I did exactly what Scott said, which was scroll my mouse over in the browser to see where the email was really coming from, and it was not Amazon. So, had I not been listening to Scott time and time again, I may have clicked on that to update some of my account information, and it was not a real email. Well, I want to thank everybody for participating and for giving us your time and attention this Monday. There will be another invitation coming out later this afternoon for our Wednesday Lunch and Learn, which is going to feature two advisors that are mastering how to do business in this pandemic environment that we're living in, David Appel and Kim Nadovitz, and we're very excited to hear from them. As I said, the invitation will be going out later this afternoon, along with the schedule for the remainder of the week and the following week. So we hope to hear. We hope that you'll be dialing in again on Wednesday. And of course, if you've got any questions or if Agency One can help you in any way, please feel free to reach out to everyone and anyone at Agency One to see how we can help. I hope everybody has a good day, and thank you so much.